They banned Earthlings from the trial. The Deathworld girl changed the rules with one kick HFY. Kayla had never been anywhere like the trial world before. The moment her shuttle broke through the planet's thin atmosphere, she saw towering structures that gleamed like silver in the sunlight, spires reaching for the sky as if to challenge the stars themselves. Massive energy fields shimmered in the air, forming a labyrinth of barriers and gates that marked the boundaries of the arena. Hundreds of ships from different worlds hovered nearby, their colors and shapes as varied as the beings who piloted them. Kayla, a girl born and hardened on the Deathworld of Vorath, felt a strange mix of fear and excitement. She had survived storms that could strip flesh from bone, predators that stalked silently through endless jungles, and winters that froze even the strongest rivers solid. But nothing had prepared her for this. The trial world, where the galaxy's strongest warriors came to compete, and where she, an Earthling, was supposed to be banned. As her shuttle landed, the ramp hissed open, and Kayla stepped onto the cold, metallic floor. Her bare feet barely made a sound, though they were calloused from years of running across jagged rocks and thorned terrain. She looked around and saw other competitors, tall, armored, clawed, scaled, and winged, moving with a grace that was almost alien. Some glanced at her with curiosity, others with contempt. One particularly large figure, a reptilian being whose skin glimmered like molten metal, let out a low growl and nudged its smaller companion. They were all trying to gauge her, to decide if she was a threat. Before she could even take a full step forward, a loud, booming voice echoed across the arena. "Attention! Earthlings are banned from this year's trial. Any attempt to compete will be met with immediate disqualification." The other competitors exchanged surprised glances, some muttering in languages she did not understand. Even the spectators hovering in their viewing platforms erupted into chatter. Kayla's heart pounded. She had expected prejudice. After all, most of the galaxy saw Earthlings as weak, fragile, and unfit, but she had not expected an outright ban. Kayla took a deep breath. She had learned long ago that fear could be controlled, even in the face of impossible odds. Her people had survived because they never panicked, because they used every sense, every reflex, and every ounce of cunning to survive. If she wanted to compete, she would have to find a way around the ban. And she would. She began observing. Every alien in the arena had patterns. Their movements, the way they carried weapons, the way they spoke and reacted, it all followed rules, rules that Kayla could learn and exploit. She noticed the way the reptilian judge adjusted his scales when he was nervous, the flick of the tail that signaled impatience. The humans in her shuttle training simulations had never dealt with aliens like this, but Kayla was not human in the same way they thought of it. She was a product of a world that demanded perfection in survival, a world where one mistake meant death. And she was ready. The trial world was designed to test not just strength, but intelligence, agility, endurance, and courage. Kayla could see the holographic map of the arena flickering in the air before her. There were zones of extreme heat, areas filled with gravity distortions, and fields that sent pulses of energy meant to disrupt movement. Competitors would have to navigate through all of it. Others had weapons, gadgets, and trained instincts honed for years, but Kayla's advantage was simple. She was unpredictable. While the other contestants accepted the ban, moving to their designated starting areas or muttering about unfair rules, Kayla slipped to the side. She didn't run. Running would attract attention, but she moved with quiet precision, sticking to shadows, blending with the metallic floor. Every step was calculated. She traced the paths of the patrol drones, the hovering sentries that scanned for unauthorized beings, and noted the blind spots. Her first observation paid off immediately. A small gap in the energy field surrounding the arena revealed a hidden entrance, one that the judges had likely overlooked because it was never meant to be used by anyone. Kayla approached cautiously. She crouched low, her muscles coiled like springs, ready to spring back at the first sign of danger. Her hand brushed against the cold metal of the entrance, and she felt a surge of adrenaline. This was it, the way in. As she slipped through the gap, she entered a narrow corridor lined with glowing panels. The hum of energy fields and the faint vibration of the arena reverberated through the walls. Kayla kept moving, her senses alert. Every step was silent, precise, almost instinctive. She knew that if she was discovered, the punishment would be severe. But she also knew that her survival instincts were sharper than anyone else's in the arena. On Vorath, a single mistake could mean death within minutes. Here, it might mean banishment, but the stakes still felt similar. The corridor opened into a larger chamber, one that gave Kayla a clear view of the main arena. Competitors moved through the zones, some practicing combat, others running obstacle courses, and a few standing still, calculating their next move. Kayla studied them. There was the winged being from Zarin Prime, balancing in midair with incredible precision. The massive stone-skinned competitor from Galar V, whose fists could crush steel. And a lithe, six-limbed creature from Urindor, moving with a speed that made her head spin. Each of them followed rules, patterns that she could read if she paid attention. Kayla's mind worked like a machine. She calculated distances, reaction times, and possible strategies. She imagined herself in each challenge, predicting the movements of her competitors, finding the weaknesses in their techniques. And then she smiled. She didn't need to be the strongest, the fastest, or the most technologically advanced. She only needed to be clever, adaptable, and bold. That was how she had survived every challenge on Vorath, and it would work here too. As she continued to observe, she noticed the judges were distracted by the larger, more imposing competitors. They overlooked the small, nimble girl hiding in the shadows. Kayla realized that the key to competing wasn't confrontation, it was creating opportunity. If she could manipulate the environment, exploit the rules, and act when no one expected it, she could change everything. She remembered a lesson her father had taught her long ago on Vorath. Strength is nothing without action. The moment you hesitate, you lose. Kayla had never forgotten it. And now, standing in the hidden chamber, she felt the truth of it resonate through her. Action would be her weapon, cleverness would be her shield, and her world, the harsh, unforgiving world that had made her who she was, would be her guide. Kayla moved forward, closer to the edge of the arena. Her heart pounded, but not with fear. It was the pulse of excitement, the thrill of facing the impossible and knowing she had a chance to overcome it. She slipped between the shadows, staying low, and approached the main arena floor. From here she could see everything, the layout, the competitors, and the judges. She studied the rules, committing each detail to memory. She could hear the whispers of the spectators, the alien voices filled with doubt and curiosity. No one expected her to make it this far. The ban on Earthlings was clear. But Kayla had never been one to follow rules that didn't make sense. She didn't need permission to survive. She didn't need approval to act. All she needed was courage, skill, and a plan. As the final preparations for the trial began, Kayla crouched at the edge of the arena, watching the other competitors take their positions. Her eyes narrowed as she identified the first obstacle, the massive gravity wells designed to slow movement and disorient competitors. She noted their patterns, the timing of the pulses, and the gaps between them. Then she shifted her attention to the patrol drones, the judges' eyes in the sky, and calculated a path that would allow her to slip unnoticed. A slow smile spread across her face. They had banned Earthlings from the trial, believing she was weak, fragile, and unfit. But they had not accounted for her world, her training, or her instincts. They had not accounted for her ability to think, adapt, and act in ways no one expected. Kayla drew a deep breath, feeling the tension in her muscles, the sharpness of her mind, and the steady beat of her heart. She was ready. She would step into the arena, unseen, and begin her trial, not because she was allowed to, but because she was capable. She would show them that Earthlings were not to be underestimated, that the galaxy had judged humans too soon, and that one small, agile girl from a Deathworld could change the rules without asking permission. And with that thought, Kayla moved, silent as a shadow, into the arena. The game had begun, and she was no longer just a girl from Vorath. She was a challenger, a survivor, and soon, she would be a force that the galaxy would never forget. Kayla moved carefully across the arena floor, her eyes scanning every movement. The other competitors were busy with their own preparations, unaware of her presence. She stayed low, using the shadows of the metallic structures to hide her movements. Every step was deliberate. On Vorath, one misstep could mean death. Here it could mean disqualification, or worse, capture by the arena's patrol drones. She was small, but she had learned to move like a predator, silent and precise. The arena was a mixture of obstacles, traps, and shifting terrains. Gravity fields altered movement in some zones, while other areas were filled with energy pulses designed to stun or confuse. Kayla noted everything: the timing of the energy pulses, the paths of the patrolling drones, the blind spots in the surveillance systems. Every detail mattered. Every moment counted. She spotted the first patrol drone hovering near the central gate. Its sensors glowed a pale blue as it scanned the area. Kayla froze for a heartbeat, then moved with sudden speed, slipping behind a stack of crates. The drone passed by without noticing her. She exhaled slowly, the tension leaving her body. The first hurdle was passed. As she crept closer to the main arena, she saw a group of alien competitors practicing combat. One of them, a towering being with metal-plated skin, swung a massive staff with incredible speed. Another, a winged creature, leapt into the air, striking multiple targets with precision. Kayla watched carefully, noting patterns, weaknesses, and timing. Each movement, each mistake was information she could use. She had no weapons. She didn't need them. On Vorath, she had learned to survive with her body, her mind, and her instincts. She could move faster than many of the competitors, think quicker than most, and endure longer than almost all. Strength and gadgets were useful, but adaptability was far more dangerous. Kayla reached a narrow corridor leading into the heart of the arena. She paused, listening. The hum of machinery and distant shouts of competitors filled the air. She crouched low, keeping to the shadows. The corridor opened into a chamber with a control panel that appeared to manage part of the arena. She stepped closer, curious. Her eyes scanned the panel. A small device blinked, indicating a control override was possible. She knew immediately what she could do. With one precise kick, she could hit the device, and the system would interpret her action as a legitimate competitor override. It was a risk. If the judges noticed, she would be caught, but she didn't hesitate. Kayla had never been afraid of risk. On Vorath, every day was a gamble. Every day required action. She positioned herself carefully, measuring the distance. Her leg coiled like a spring. Then she struck. The kick was quick and accurate. The device clattered to the floor, sending sparks into the air. The control system flickered, then hummed differently. A message appeared on the holographic displays. All present beings in the arena are now recognized as valid competitors. Competitors and judges alike stared in shock. Whispers spread through the arena. Did she just... a human? Impossible. Each challenge, each zone had rules, and now she could test herself against them all. She smiled. The galaxy had underestimated humans once again, and she intended to prove why that was a mistake. The first obstacle zone was a field of shifting gravity wells. The alien competitors moved through it with skill, but Kayla saw an opportunity. The patterns of the wells were predictable if observed carefully. Timing her steps, she jumped from one zone to another, barely touching the shifting fields. Her small frame made her movements quicker and more precise than the larger competitors. Every step was calculated, every leap measured. An alien from Zarin Prime with wings spread wide attempted to block her path. Kayla didn't hesitate. She ducked under the swing of a claw, rolled across the floor, and used the momentum to vault over a gravity pulse. The alien stumbled, surprised by her speed. Kayla didn't attack. It wasn't necessary. Movement and clever use of the environment were enough to give her an advantage. As she moved deeper into the arena, Kayla encountered more complex obstacles. Energy barriers flickered on and off. forcing competitors to time their movements perfectly. Spinning blades rotated in certain zones, designed to cut down anyone who misjudged the distance. Kayla studied each hazard before acting. Her mind worked quickly, calculating angles, distances, and timing. She reached a section where a massive mechanical creature prowled. Its sensors glowed red, searching for movement. Many competitors froze, unsure how to approach it. Kayla crouched low, studied its patterns, and waited. When the creature turned its massive head away, she darted past, moving silently and efficiently. She had faced predators on Voreth far deadlier than this machine, and she knew how to exploit timing and observation to survive. Word of her presence began to spread. Spectators in the viewing platforms leaned forward, curious. Some aliens whispered in disbelief. A human moving like that, impossible. Kayla didn't care. She was not competing for approval. She was competing because she could. And with each obstacle she overcame, her confidence grew. The next challenge was a combat test. Multiple competitors were placed in a simulated battle zone designed to test agility, strategy, and strength. Kayla observed the other competitors, noting their reliance on brute force and technology. She realized that she didn't need to match them blow for blow. Instead, she could outthink them, using the environment and her speed. When the first attack came, Kayla sidestepped, using the wall for leverage and flipping over her opponent. Her movements were fluid, precise, and unpredictable. The competitors tried to corner her, but she always found an opening, always adapted. The Zarin Prime winged creature lunged with sharp talons, but Kayla ducked, spun, and kicked, sending it tumbling into a low-energy barrier. It wasn't a violent attack, just enough to use the environment to her advantage. As she progressed, Kayla realized something important. The galaxy's elite relied on their strength, gadgets, and tradition. They moved in predictable ways, bound by habit. She, however, had no such limits. Every instinct, every experience from her Deathworld upbringing allowed her to move in ways they could not anticipate. That unpredictability was her greatest weapon. Time passed, and Kayla faced challenge after challenge. She navigated energy grids, avoided patrol drones, and outsmarted competitors who were stronger, larger, and more technologically advanced. With each success, her confidence grew. She wasn't just surviving, she was excelling. Finally, she reached a central platform where a group of judges observed the arena. Their expressions were a mixture of shock and respect. One judge, the reptilian being who had first announced the ban, narrowed his eyes at her. Kayla met his gaze steadily. She didn't flinch. The ban had been lifted, yes, but now she had proven she could compete on merit alone. The crowd on the viewing platforms erupted in chatter. Aliens who had doubted humans now whispered among themselves, astonished by her speed, her agility, and her cleverness. Kayla felt a thrill run through her body. She had not only overturned the ban, she had begun to show the galaxy that humans were not weak. They were adaptive, clever, and relentless. She moved to the next zone, a maze filled with traps and energy pulses. Competitors stumbled, caught in the hazards, while Kayla's movements were smooth and precise. Every step, every decision was calculated. She didn't rush. She observed, adapted, and acted. One misstep could have ended her run, but Kayla had long ago learned to trust her instincts. By the time she reached the far side of the maze, she was alone. Competitors who had once seemed unbeatable were behind her, struggling with the challenges she had already overcome. Kayla paused for a moment, taking a deep breath. Her heart pounded, not from fear but from exhilaration. She had turned the tables, not through brute strength but through intelligence, courage, and adaptability. The judges conferred quietly among themselves. It was clear that Kayla's presence had changed everything. The ban on Earthlings had been overturned by one action, one kick, one instinctive decision. And now, she was moving through the trial not as a banished outsider, but as a legitimate competitor who had earned her place. Kayla crouched low, scanning the next zone. This area was a combination of physical and mental challenges, designed to test endurance, strategy, and adaptability. She smiled. This was exactly the kind of challenge she thrived on. On Voreth, survival had always required both mind and body. Here, she had an advantage the others did not. She was trained to survive in impossible conditions, to think and act when all odds were against her. The arena stretched ahead, full of obstacles, competitors, and unknown dangers. Kayla didn't hesitate. She moved forward with determination, ready to face every challenge, ready to show the galaxy what humans were capable of, and ready to prove that one small girl from a Deathworld could change the rules of the trial world. Kayla moved quickly through the arena, her eyes scanning every corner. She had already faced patrol drones, gravity fields, and complex traps, but she knew the next challenges would be even harder. The trial world was designed to test the strongest of the galaxy, and now that she had overturned the ban, she was competing not just for survival, but to prove humans were capable of extraordinary feats. The next section of the arena was a wide-open combat zone. Several alien champions were already present, each one towering or lithe, armed with weapons she had never seen before. Some had energy blades that hummed with deadly power, while others had natural weapons like claws, stingers, or armored tails. Despite their differences, one thing was clear: they all underestimated her. Kayla's small size and human appearance made them believe she would be easy to defeat. That would be her advantage. She crouched low, moving from shadow to shadow. Each alien competitor had a style, a rhythm, and a weakness. The winged Zarin Prime leaped into the air, spinning and striking with talons that could tear through steel. Kayla watched carefully, calculating the timing. When the creature struck, she rolled low, letting its claws pass over her. She pushed herself off the floor, using the momentum to slide behind it, and then ducked as it spun back. Her movements were fluid, controlled, and unpredictable. A massive stone-skinned being advanced toward her, swinging a heavy spiked club. Kayla didn't try to block it. There was no chance against its strength. Instead, she waited, gauging the arc and timing, and then sprang forward with a jump and a precise kick against a support beam. The structure wobbled, just enough to distract the competitor. Kayla darted past, using the environment as her weapon rather than her body. Every movement forced the alien champions to react, disrupting their patterns. She noticed another competitor, a six-limbed creature from Urendor, trying to corner her. Kayla ducked under one set of limbs, rolled past another, and vaulted over a small energy barrier. The creature lunged, missing by inches, and stumbled into one of the arena's traps. It was not a violent defeat, but it sent a clear message. Kayla could not be predicted. The spectators leaned forward, whispering among themselves. Even the judges who had once scoffed at her were watching with growing interest. "A human moving with such precision," one whispered. "I have never seen anything like it." Kayla ignored them. She didn't compete for applause. She competed because she could, and because the galaxy had assumed she could not. The next challenge combined combat and agility. Platforms floated above a pit filled with energy pulses that could stun or injure. Competitors had to leap across the platforms while fending off attacks. Kayla studied the spacing, the speed of the moving platforms, and the trajectory of the attacks. Then she moved. Each jump was calculated, each landing precise. When a competitor tried to intercept her, she sidestepped and used the momentum to propel herself farther. The energy pulses forced her to think quickly, but her experience on Voreth had taught her to make split-second decisions under pressure. By the time she reached the far side, she was already ahead of most competitors. They struggled to keep up, relying on brute force and training rather than adaptability. Kayla realized that her advantage was not strength or weaponry. It was her ability to adapt, to anticipate, and to turn every challenge into an opportunity. She paused for a moment to catch her breath and observed the next zone. It was a combination of physical and mental tests. Competitors had to navigate a maze filled with shifting walls, energy barriers, and illusionary paths. Many had become disoriented within seconds, trapped in loops or forced into dangerous areas. Kayla didn't hesitate. She studied the patterns, memorized the timing, and moved with a confidence that came from years of surviving impossible situations. The maze was difficult, but Kayla thrived under pressure. When an energy barrier suddenly rose in front of her, she leapt and grabbed a ledge, swinging over to the next safe platform. She landed silently, her eyes scanning for the next hazard. A competitor tried to block her path, but she feinted left, rolled under, and pushed off the wall to propel herself forward. Her body moved with the precision of someone who had lived in a world where mistakes meant death. Through the maze, Kayla also noticed subtle opportunities to use the environment against her opponents. She kicked loose a small panel, creating a distraction that caused one of the alien champions to stumble into a trap. Another competitor misjudged a moving platform, falling back several steps. Kayla didn't attack directly. She used the arena itself to give her an edge, turning hazards into advantages. After navigating the maze, she entered a zone filled with unpredictable environmental hazards, pulses of energy, shifting gravity fields, and mechanical traps that activated randomly. Most competitors hesitated, trying to calculate the perfect timing. Kayla didn't hesitate at all. She moved with instinct and precision, letting her senses guide her. Her body reacted faster than her mind could process, a skill honed over years of surviving the unforgiving wilderness of Vorath. She leapt over a rotating energy blade, rolled under a swinging spike, and ran across a platform that tilted dangerously with each step. One competitor lunged at her with a long staff, but Kayla ducked, twisted her body, and let the momentum of his attack carry him into a trap. Another tried to intercept her with claws, but she sidestepped, letting him crash into the environment. By now, the spectators were on the edge of their seats. Judges were whispering among themselves, impressed despite themselves. Kayla had turned the tables, not with brute force, but with speed, intelligence, and adaptability. Each move was a statement. Humans were underestimated at their own risk. The next challenge was a combat gauntlet. Multiple alien champions attacked at once, testing her endurance and reflexes. Kayla crouched low, analyzing their patterns. One would strike high, another low. Some moved predictably, others tried to coordinate. Kayla adjusted, moving in ways they could not anticipate. She dodged, feinted, and rolled, turning their coordinated attacks into confusion. One by one, they stumbled into the arena's hazards while she remained unscathed. A massive competitor known for crushing opponents with sheer strength advanced toward her. Kayla didn't panic. She waited, timing her movements to exploit his momentum. When he swung, she ducked, grabbed a support beam, and launched herself over his head. He stumbled off balance, and she rolled into a safe zone. The crowd erupted in astonishment. The judges exchanged glances. No one had expected a human to move with such skill and creativity. Kayla realized something important. The galaxy valued strength, technology, and tradition. Humans, however, thrived on adaptability, ingenuity, and courage. These qualities could turn weakness into strength, small size into an advantage, and risk into opportunity. Every step she took, every challenge she overcame, reinforced that truth. She paused briefly to assess the next section. It was a final obstacle before the trial's main challenge, a series of floating platforms above a pit filled with unstable energy. Competitors would have to cross while under attack from multiple opponents. Kayla smiled. This was exactly the kind of challenge where humans could excel. She didn't need to overpower her enemies. She needed to outthink them, move unpredictably, and use the environment to her advantage. The floating platforms shifted unpredictably, forcing competitors to time their jumps perfectly. Kayla leapt from one to another, adjusting her trajectory with each movement. Her small frame allowed her to move faster and with more control than larger competitors. When an opponent tried to intercept her, she ducked, rolled, and used their momentum against them, sending them stumbling into a trap. By the time she reached the far side, she was ahead of nearly all the competitors. Her heart pounded, but not with fear. It was exhilaration, the thrill of facing the impossible and overcoming it. She had not only survived, but excelled. The galaxy had judged humans too soon, assuming weakness where there was adaptability, underestimation where there was skill. Kayla crouched at the edge of the final platform, looking back at the chaos she had left behind. Alien champions struggled to keep up, traps had claimed some, and others were disoriented. She had changed the perception of Earthlings in just a short time. Judges and spectators alike were witnessing something extraordinary. A small girl from a Deathworld, using her instincts, intelligence, and courage to challenge the galaxy's strongest. As she prepared for the next phase, the main trial, Kayla felt a quiet satisfaction. She had proven that Earthlings could survive where others doubted. She had turned risk into advantage, weakness into strength, and creativity into power. The trial was far from over, but she had already begun to change the rules, not just of the arena but of how the galaxy viewed humans. Kayla took a deep breath, feeling her muscles tense and relax, her mind alert and her instincts sharp. The final challenges awaited and she was ready. She would continue to move unpredictably, think faster than her competitors and adapt to every obstacle. She had turned one kick into an opportunity, and now she would turn every skill, every instinct, and every ounce of courage into success. The arena stretched ahead, filled with unknown dangers, powerful competitors, and challenges designed to break even the strongest. But Kayla was not afraid. She had survived the death world of Vorath, navigated impossible mazes, outsmarted elite warriors, and overturned the ban on Earthlings. Now she would face whatever came next, and she would do it on her own terms, showing the galaxy that humans were capable of extraordinary feats. Kayla crouched low, ready to move. The next part of the trial would test everything she had learned, but she was prepared. Her eyes burned with determination. She had already begun to rewrite the rules of the galaxy, one movement at a time, and she would continue to do so until she proved that humans were not just survivors. They were champions. Kayla stood at the edge of the final arena, her eyes scanning the battlefield ahead. The galaxy's most powerful competitors were already there, each one preparing for the ultimate test. Massive energy fields surrounded the arena, shifting gravity zones pulsed unpredictably, and the terrain itself seemed alive, designed to challenge every skill imaginable. This was the final stage of the trial, where strength, strategy, and courage were tested to their limits. Her opponents glared at her with disbelief. The small human had advanced through every stage of the trial, defeating monsters, navigating impossible hazards, and outsmarting elite warriors. None had expected her to make it this far. Many whispered that her victories were luck, that a human could not possibly succeed against such overwhelming odds. Kayla ignored them. Luck had nothing to do with it. This was the result of instincts honed on Vorath, a lifetime of survival in impossible conditions, and the courage to act when others hesitated. The first wave of competitors advanced. A massive stone-skinned warrior swung a spiked club, aiming to crush her with raw power. Kayla crouched low, letting him overshoot. She rolled to the side, using the momentum to spring off a platform and land behind him. His own weight worked against him, and he stumbled into one of the energy barriers. Kayla didn't strike him further. She didn't need to. Her movements alone were enough to control the battlefield. The next opponent was the winged creature from Zarin Prime, swooping down with sharp talons aimed at her. Kayla watched carefully, timing her leap. As the creature dived, she sidestepped, grabbed a ledge, and swung over its path. The creature missed, spinning wildly, and collided with a shifting gravity field. Kayla moved past it silently, efficiently, leaving it disoriented. She realized that her advantage in this final stage was the same as in every other challenge: unpredictability. No one expected a human to move like this, to adapt so quickly, to exploit the arena itself as a weapon. Every competitor relied on their training, their strength, their technology. Kayla relied on instinct, observation, and clever use of her environment. The central zone of the arena was a floating platform above a pit filled with unstable energy pulses. Competitors had to cross it while fending off attacks. Kayla studied the patterns carefully. Platforms shifted, pulsed, and tilted while opponents advanced, expecting to corner her. She didn't panic. She leapt from one platform to another, timing her movements perfectly. When a massive competitor lunged at her, she ducked, twisted, and used his own momentum to push him into a pit of energy pulses. He flailed, struggling, but was unable to recover in time. Two other competitors tried to trap her simultaneously. Kayla didn't fight them directly. Instead, she feinted left, rolled under one, and vaulted over the other. Their attacks collided, and both were thrown off balance into the arena's hazards. Kayla continued forward, never stopping, her mind calculating the next move before the previous one was complete. Spectators gasped at her agility. Judges whispered among themselves, their earlier skepticism giving way to astonishment. One judge, the reptilian who had first banned Earthlings, watched silently, his eyes narrowing in thought. Kayla had done something no one expected. She had turned her perceived weakness into an unmatched strength. The final challenge required more than speed or agility. Competitors had to face a combination of combat, mental puzzles, and environmental hazards simultaneously. Massive walls shifted unpredictably, energy beams crossed paths at random intervals, and drones fired pulses that could disable the unwary. The elite warriors were confident. They relied on experience, power, and technology. Kayla relied on her senses, quick thinking, and courage. She crouched low, her mind analyzing every detail. The walls moved in a pattern, though irregular. Energy beams followed a rhythm if observed closely. Drones scanned in arcs that could be predicted with careful attention. Kayla's body moved as her mind calculated the safest path. She leapt over a shifting wall, rolled under a pulsing energy beam, and used the momentum of a fallen opponent to launch herself onto a safe platform. Competitors tried to follow, but their movements were slower, heavier, and more predictable. Kayla's small frame allowed her to move in ways they could not anticipate. Every jump, roll, and twist of her body disrupted their strategies. One by one, they stumbled into traps, energy pulses, or misjudged jumps. The arena itself became a tool in her hands, amplifying her skills and intelligence. The final group of competitors, the strongest remaining, advanced together. They tried to corner her, combining strength, speed, and strategy. Kayla assessed them carefully. Direct confrontation would be dangerous. She needed to outthink them. Timing, positioning, and observation became her weapons. She ducked under one attack, vaulted over another, and kicked a support beam, sending it swinging into a third competitor. Chaos erupted as the coordinated attack collapsed. Kayla moved through the confusion, landing safely on a central platform. The spectators were on the edge of their seats. Judges whispered in disbelief. Aliens who had once doubted humans now stared in astonishment. Kayla had done something extraordinary. She had taken on the galaxy's elite and, through cleverness, agility, and courage, emerged unscathed. The final obstacle was the central control podium. Whoever reached it first could declare victory. Kayla's opponents, though powerful, were now disoriented from her unpredictable movements. She sprinted forward, dodging energy pulses and avoiding falling hazards. Her heart pounded with excitement but not fear. This was the moment she had prepared for, the moment where her instincts, training, and courage would decide the outcome. One massive competitor lunged at her, aiming to block the final path. Kayla feinted left, rolled under him, and grabbed a control panel. She kicked it with precision, activating a sequence that destabilized the arena temporarily. Energy fields shifted, obstacles moved, and her opponents were thrown off balance. In one fluid motion, Kayla leapt onto the control podium and slammed her hands down, declaring victory. Silence fell for a heartbeat. Then the arena erupted. Spectators cheered, some in disbelief, some in admiration. Judges conferred quietly, acknowledging that the small human had not only survived but dominated the trial. Kayla stood on the podium, breathing steadily, her eyes scanning the faces of competitors and spectators alike. She had proven that humans were not weak. They were adaptable, clever, and fearless. The reptilian judge stepped forward, his expression unreadable. "This is unprecedented," he said. "A human has outperformed the galaxy's elite through skill, intelligence, and courage. The rules must be revised. Humans will no longer be banned from the trial." Humans, once underestimated, were now recognized as capable of extraordinary feats. One small girl from a Deathworld had done what many thought impossible. She looked at the crowd, at the alien competitors who had doubted her, and at the judges who had initially dismissed her. There was no arrogance in her gaze, only confidence and quiet pride. Kayla had acted on instinct, intelligence, and courage, and in doing so, she had rewritten the rules, not just of the arena, but of how humans were seen across the galaxy. The spectators continued to cheer as Kayla descended from the podium. She moved with the same grace and precision that had carried her through every challenge. The competitors who had once mocked her now approached with respect, some even offering gestures of acknowledgement. Kayla accepted them with quiet nods. She had not come to dominate with aggression but to prove a point, that humans, no matter how small, could face impossible odds and prevail. As she stepped out of the arena, she paused to look at the stars above. The galaxy stretched infinitely, full of challenges, dangers, and opportunities. Kayla knew that this victory was only the beginning. Earthlings had been underestimated for too long. She had shown that courage, intelligence, and adaptability could rival strength, technology, and tradition. She smiled to herself. One kick, one instinctive action had changed the course of the trial. Countless challenges had tested her, but she had used each obstacle to her advantage. The galaxy would remember this day. Humans had arrived, not just as survivors but as champions. Kayla's journey was far from over. There would be other trials, other challenges, and other opportunities to prove that humans were extraordinary. But for now, she allowed herself a moment of quiet satisfaction. She had faced the galaxy's best, relied on nothing but her instincts, intelligence, and courage, and emerged victorious. As she walked away from the arena, the cheering of the spectators still echoing in her ears, Kayla felt a sense of pride. She had not only survived the impossible, she had thrived. She had rewritten the rules of the trial and in doing so, had reminded the galaxy that humans were not to be underestimated. Kayla looked ahead, to the stars and to the future, knowing that this was just the first of many challenges. She was ready for whatever came next. After all, she was a human, born on a death world, shaped by impossible conditions, and proven to be capable of changing the galaxy with courage, intelligence, and one well-placed kick.